final buzzer. This is where you come for instant post-game reaction.
Oh, hell yeah.
This is Dubs OT.
Can't wait.
With John Dickinson.
Hey, JD, what you up to, sugar? Long time no talk to.
On KNBR 104.5 and 6.8. Streaming live at knbr.com and on the KNBR app.
Butler drives into the chest of Irving. No whistle. Another call. Offensive foul on Butler. No whistle initially. And James Williams blew his whistle. Said offensive foul, but Steve Kerr is going to challenge it.
It has been determined that the defender establishes a legal guarding position and the dribble is straight line path prior to contact. The ruling on the floor of an offensive foul stands as called. The challenge by Golden State is unsuccessful.
Unsuccessful challenge. I think that was a good call. There were a couple other questionable ones, including a no call with Steph Curry attempting a drive, and we welcome you in. Bad loss for the Warriors, 111-107. First loss, first bad loss of the Jimmy Butler era as the Mavericks get the job done and prevail over the Warriors. So back to 500 again goes Golden State at 27-27. 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. We welcome you in. It's Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader as we come to you after every Warriors game here on the Leader. Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line open. You can chime in and watch the show on YouTube and Twitch, and we appreciate everybody filing in here on YouTube and Twitch to begin the proceedings on this Wednesday night. We've got Kyle Haar in our San Francisco studios here as we get this thing going. And bad loss. I mean, straight up, right off the top, when you look at the players that were out for the Dallas Mavericks, and this kind of being a new-look Warrior squad with Jimmy Butler and what we've seen in the first two games at Chicago and Milwaukee, where the Warriors took advantage of an awful Chicago team, big second half, and a victory there, and then a Bucks team that didn't have Giannis, but the Warriors controlled that game basically start to finish. And you look at this game tonight, Mavs without Anthony Davis, Mavs without Daniel Gafford, Mavs have been without Lively, P.J. Washington, and Caleb Martin, all not playing in this one for Dallas. And the Warriors were bad defensively, really, through the first three quarters of this game. I thought the Warriors played better defense in stretches in the fourth quarter, but they really allowed the Mavs to be comfortable and had no answer for Kyrie Irving tonight. I mean, that's first and foremost. Kyrie goes for 42 in 40 minutes and just no answer as the Warriors were basically in an uphill climb throughout the course of the ball game. And there's a lot to get into. We can get into down the stretch. And I will say, just as a quick aside, tonight, ESPN game, had the ESPN feed on. The country's watching the Warriors. Steph's leading the Warriors back with Jimmy Butler in the fourth quarter against a severely undermanned Dallas Mavericks team. I'll kind of throw that off to the side for a second. But as I'm watching the game tonight, and I'm thinking it felt like the Warriors were being welcomed back to the national landscape tonight. And I know they never really left, but the final 4 minutes and the intensity back and forth, and yeah, the Warriors failed to execute again in another close game. And I do think it falls now in the Jimmy Butler era as a bad loss, considering everybody that was out for the Mavs. But it felt almost like a reintroduction to meaningful basketball. Like tonight felt meaningful for the Warriors. It felt like Steph wanted it. Draymond wanted it. I mean, hell, Draymond rolled the clock back, I thought, 2015 to 18 levels with his end-of-the-game defense. Steph kept fighting. Jimmy Butler kept trying to lead the Warriors back in this one. And the game felt big. And let's not sugarcoat anything. The Warriors, for the most part tonight, were awful. They played an awful game and had a chance to steal it. They were down 10 in the final few minutes there. It was 99-89. And then the Warriors go on a quick 13-2 run there. And then down the stretch, I thought key sequence down the stretch, and there were so many, but the rip through 3 that ended up being 3 free throws as opposed to 2 with Kyrie, I thought that was big, but that came after Jimmy Butler missed a jumper. Moses Moody got an offensive rebound, and then Stephen Curry missed on the drive. I thought that sequence with the Warriors having the ball up by 1 in all the sequences down the stretch was the pivotal one, because the Warriors had just grabbed the lead, have a chance to push the lead. Jimmy Butler has a shot, rim out. Moody gets the rebound. Curry ends up missing on the drive. And look, there, Kyrie then hits the 3 when it's tied at 104. The Warriors hung in, played some quality defense, I thought, in the final quarter, and really for the most part in the final 4 to 6 minutes of the game. And Draymond was at the forefront of that. But I think when you look at this thing, the Warriors were awful. Like, they were awful defensively through 3 quarters. They did not play a winning game, and they had a chance to steal it. So I don't know if that makes you feel better or worse about the way that this thing played out for the Warriors. I think it might make you feel worse considering who was at. If the Mavs had Anthony Davis and PJ Washington and Caleb Martin and Lively or Gafford, one of the two, and it was a game where the Warriors play that awful and have a chance to win down the stretch, I think you're looking at it a little bit differently. But those guys were all out, and the Warriors just, from the beginning, Kerr went back to Quentin Post in the starting lineup, Moses Moody off the bench, and the Warriors, let me tell you where they lost this game. They lost this game at the beginning of the first, second, and third quarters. Warriors down 15-6 early. They were slow on defense. They were taking quick shots on the offensive end. They were getting beat in transition. Warriors had a nice recovery into the first quarter after falling behind 15-6. They were only down 1 at the end of the quarter, and led by a group there at the end of the quarter: Podziemski, Moody, Guy Santos, Jimmy Butler. 13-4 bench advantage there, and only down 1. And thankful at that point for the Warriors to only be down 1. Top of the second quarter, and the Warriors get outscored 16-5. So 15-6 in the first quarter, 16-5 at the beginning of the second quarter. Do the math on that. That's 31-11 at the beginning of those 2 quarters if you combine them. And then you go to the third quarter for the Warriors, and they get outscored 20-6. So you're 31-11. Now you're 51-17 to begin the first 3 quarters. And you basically got blown out. And Steve Kerr did make a lineup change from the first half to the second half, and he did put Moses Moody in there for Quentin Post to begin the third quarter, and it didn't matter. The Warriors got smoked in the first 5 minutes of that quarter, worse than they did in the first 2 quarters. That being said, Quentin Post, and in particular Buddy Hield, were awful tonight. How many times is Buddy Hield going to get matched up on Kyrie Irving? And look, the Warriors have no answer for Kyrie other than Gary Payton II. And GP2, this was a night where he was actually scoring. But I think what you saw tonight is a little bit of the difficulty still, even with Jimmy Butler in the fold, the difficulty of the Warriors having too many players that are either good on offense or good on defense, and not enough two-way players. And some of the guys that you feel more comfortable about being two-way players right now, like Moses Moody ain't guarding Kyrie freaking Irving. So you want to have Moses Moody out there. So you've got, let's say, Steph out there with Jimmy Butler, and Draymond's at the 5, and you want Moody out there. So you got Moody playing the 3 or the 4. You got Jimmy Butler out there playing the 3 or the 4. You got Draymond out there. So those are your 3. You got Steph out there. And so if you put GP out there with that group, and again, tonight, maybe you could have got away with it, but if you put GP out there with that group, now you've got Draymond and GP out there. Now you got and Jimmy Butler. who they're going to dare to shoot from the outside, and Jimmy won't shoot from the outside. So now you have offensive issues because you want to get GP out there because he's really the only guy on the roster, honestly, that really can handle someone like Kyrie Irving. Like Jimmy Butler's not on the roster to guard Kyrie Irving. Jimmy Butler might be on the roster to guard Giannis or Tatum or Jaylen Brown or Luka or even LeBron. But the Warriors are still going to have a lot of difficulty, and I think even in some ways more difficulty with the quick, shifty point guards than they did before because Andrew Wiggins was much better at defending those types of players that compared to Jimmy Butler. Just different players. Jimmy Butler's a better player, not relitigating the trade or anything like that. It's just when you make a trade, you get better in certain areas, maybe you get worse in other areas. I also view that in the lens of, and everything here is viewed with the lens of, all right, this is a bad loss. This is a really bad loss for the Warriors in terms of the standings, in terms of the race to whether you're going to be a play-in team or do you have a shot to get to 6 or are you going to completely be on the outside looking in? Huge swing. If you just look at, and we were talking earlier, I was on with Copes and Derek Papa, how the Warriors basically have no tiebreakers against anybody right now. Phoenix got beat tonight. The Warriors are still a game ahead of Phoenix. They don't have the tiebreaker on Phoenix right now. They've lost 2 of 3. They've lost 2 to Sacramento, playing them in January when they were a little bit shorthanded and the Kings were playing their best basketball of the season. They've now dropped 2 of 3 to Dallas. They do play one more time at Chase Center right after the All-Star break. They have the tiebreaker on Minnesota. They don't have it on the Clippers. They don't have it on the Lakers. Like they don't have the tiebreakers on any, and tonight is crushing. And you look at a team even like Sacramento, over Sacramento played this same Dallas team the other night with their new look squad and went in there and won, and found a way to win in overtime. And so that it's a swing moment in the context of the standings. So you look at where everything sits right now. But yeah, Buddy Hield was awful. Quentin Post, I thought, was really attacked tonight and kind of played off the floor. Minus 19 in the time that he was out there. Buddy Hield minus 21. Really, 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 really bad defensive performances there. And so, sometimes you've got guys that the positives outweigh the negatives. Other nights, the negative aspects of their game are outweighed, and it becomes part of the reason that you lose the game. But you look at this thing now and to sort of separate the now, and this is a bad loss in the now. The other part of the equation here now with 28 games to go, and the Warriors sitting here at 27-27. Basically, this is the 2/3 mark of the season, 54 games. There's 54, 27, 27, 27, and then there's an extra one. So there's 28 to go. We're basically 2/3 of the way through the season. The other part is evaluating what you're going to need in the offseason. And the Warriors are going to need a 2-guard in the offseason. And they preferably you're going to need a 2-guard that can play both ends. Buddy Hield ain't it. If Brandon Podziemski's going to be it, then you need to go find a backup point guard, which I think is something they may need to try and find anyway. But the problem with this roster right now is they are still kind of stuck with the areas that they didn't address, even though they addressed the most important area, which was going and getting Jimmy Butler and a second star. And that, to this point in time, is played out. All right, 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. Let's get to the phones. Adam in San Jose, our tip-off caller tonight here on Dubs OT with JD on the Sports Leader. Hey, Adam.
What's up, JD? First of all, I don't think I could express how bad of an officiating that was tonight. They were absolutely terrible for an ESPN broadcast. You'd think they'd have the best of the best, but those three definitely were nowhere near good. And then something controversial, but at this given moment, I'm not talking about their overall careers. I'm talking about as of now. I think it's fair to say that Kyrie's a much better point guard than Steph is. Steph hasn't looked the same all season, last year, even the year before. He hasn't been as good as Kyrie Irving. It seems like defenses are going at him more now than ever. It's almost as if they're targeting him, knowing him that he's the weak link on defense, and he's either going to foul you or you could score over him. Adam Silver had very high praise for Steph the other day, going as far as saying he's a commissioner's dream. When is Dunleavy going to reach out to the league about his whistle? It feels like two-way players. That kid Will Hardy tonight was getting better whistles than Steph, and then just overall two-way players seem to be getting better whistles than Steph. Last year, the Lakers filed a grievance for LeBron not getting foul calls, and you saw the difference. And then lastly, I think we're just really desperately missing Wiggins' defense. His defense was crucial to our success, and it seems like that's what's missing.
Yeah, thanks for the call. A lot to chew on there as I'm kind of looking at some of the post-game locker room stuff as well. Yeah, the officiating was not good tonight. I'm not one, and thank you, Adam, for the call, to sit here and get on the soapbox and complain about the officials. If fans want to complain about it, that's fine. It wasn't good tonight. I think as far as the big picture and Steph's whistle, and that's something that Warrior fans, it draws the ire and has for a long time. I do feel like there's fewer of those calls given the nature of the way that Steph plays compared to others. Like, he does not play the same kind of game that James Harden does, that foul grifting kind of game. Even Jimmy Butler is a wing, player that will attack the basket in a certain way. He goes about it in a way to where he does not get those calls the way that other players do. That I also think there was a point, and this was the case with Shaq, and it's funny, I'm comparing a center to a guard, but back in the day when Shaq was so dominant, and I'm going back 8, 8 years ago, 6, 7, 8 years ago, when Steph was really peak Steph and MVPs and all that. I think when Shaq was so dominant at one point that they would allow a lot of hacking, some of the against him, because he was so dominant. It was almost like you have to let it go to allow the defense to even be able to compete. And so there were a lot of games where Shaq would get really frustrated, but then down the stretch in those games, he'd get enough of the whistles to where it would end up kind of working out okay. But I think the officials would swallow their whistles some because the player was so dominant. Again, it's not a big versus small kind of a thing. It's more of a dominance thing. And I think with Steph, going back to 15, 16, 17, 18, the true peak of Steph's prime, young prime, I think I think he was so dominant that the Warriors were almost started to be viewed as, yeah, you know what? They're probably going to win anyway. We're not going to, don't need to help them. And I think it just kind of became a little bit of a thing over time. But make no mistake, he got fouled on the drive there late. There's no question. There's a couple of calls every game. Again, I don't think we're talking about he should be going to the line 10 and 12 times. But there are nights where he goes to the line 2 times and maybe it should be 6. There are times where maybe he doesn't go to the line at all. Maybe it should be 4. Not every night, but some nights. I think that's fair and within the range of reasonable discussion. As far as the defense, and by the way, I do think for all the poor officiating, I do think they got the Jimmy Butler charge call right. I do think that was a charge. I do think Kyrie got himself in position, and that being, you got to challenge it in that situation if you're Kerr, but I think that particular call they got right here. And then lastly, teams do go at Steph. And Steph came into the league and he was not a good defender initially. And over time, he became an acceptable defender. And then he became a pretty solid to maybe even good defender. And he bulked up, and he really, all of the agility and quickness things that he was doing for his offense was helping his defense. He was sturdier, stronger. Like, Steph went from being an awful defender to being a pretty solid, steady, if not even a slightly plus defender for years. But as he's gotten older, and I think he's been asked to carry more of the burden offensively, I think his defense has declined. Like, we can debate offense and his age and all those things, and I think teams know it. Teams also know when he's the only offensive threat, as he had been really throughout the course of this year and most of last year. When you're the only offensive threat, what do teams try to do? They try to wear a guy down. They make him guard. They make him guard the ball. Steph's going to be running around anyway off the screens on offense. Make him run on defense. You put him in pick and roll. You get him on switches. You drive him. If you get, teams will say, if you get Steph Curry in front of you, I don't care who you are, drive him. Make him stand up. So I think we've seen that, and I do think it's not blasphemy, even in the Bay Area, to say that Steph Curry's defense has declined. Again, is that why the Warriors lost tonight? It's probably among many different reasons, but it's absolutely a fair thing to point out. So I see all different angles on all of that. Tim in Portland next. 808 KNBR 415-808-5627 on the Sports Leader. Hey, Tim.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well. What's on your mind tonight?
A couple of thoughts on the shooting guard position. Heard what you were saying earlier, and I agree. First of all, Kyrie's Kyrie, right? So you could have Wiggins on Kyrie, and he'll still have 30 points, 10 assists. He's Kyrie Irving, and he was on his game tonight.
Right, but if I'll say this though, Tim, if he has 34 tonight, the Warriors win. But he had 42. So that's kind of what and he would have had a great game. He still would have had a great game, even if he'd had 34 or 36. That was kind of my like, the Warriors have nobody. Even GP is not really, he can do it for a few minutes here or there, but yeah, Kyrie's awesome when he's cooking. Right. There's no doubt.
What you're hoping with someone like that is slow him down a little, be able to play him one-on-one and not throw your whole defense into a tether just to keep him under control.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hey, so here's some thoughts on the roster regarding who could play that number 2 point of attack type position. All right, I got a couple. First of all, Pat Spencer is only 1 inch shorter, 1 inch less wingspan than D'Anthony Melton. And he's actually 1 inch taller, weighs 5 pounds more. I mean, he's kind of a rugged guy. Might be worth a shot, And I mean, I'd rather have seen 10 minutes of Pat Spencer out there trying to guard Kyrie than 10 minutes less of Buddy Hield,
Buddy Hield is probably the worst possible option.
Agreed. Yeah. No need to keep talking about that. It's
exactly.
So apparent, one of these reporters that's there in the press scrum needs to set Kerr up with hey, I noticed Buddy was minus 21 tonight. Why do you play him so much? Well, we use him for his spacing. Well, you say you use him for his spacing, but he wasn't making his shots tonight, and yet you continued to play him. Why do you do that, Steve? The fans want to know, but you'd probably lose your press pass if you asked that question. So, what about G. Santos? Can he guard the 2? Doesn't Brazil use him as a defensive guard in FIBA basketball?
I think he's more of a wing. He's a good hustle player. I think he's more of a wing than a guard. He does move his feet well. I feel like he can guard quicker wing players, but maybe not guards. I'll give you a guy, Tim. I think, and we'll see, he's going to have to want to do it. And he's got the ability to do it, but it's Kuminga. I mean, Kuminga's the guy that, play the 4 on offense, but you might be playing the 1 on defense because, and then that allows, Draymond and Jimmy to be either on wing players or to be able to help. And I don't know. I think Kuminga has the potential, again, if he wants to do it, and you got to find the right other other players to be on the court with him. Obviously, Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy. You got to figure out who that 5th guy is going to be in that particular scenario. But I think Kuminga is somebody I think Kuminga's better when you simplify the game for him offensively and defensively, as we've talked about a lot. More offensively, we've discussed it, but I think defensively, with his athleticism and length, I think he's somebody that could grow into that role if he really wanted to, of, hey, just go hound this guy. Just go hound this quick guard, and don't worry about help defense and rotations and anything like that. We're going to simplify the game. We'll let Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green worry about rotations. And those two guys are going to be behind you, Tim, and they're going to be kind of yelling at you where to go, almost like a middle linebacker and a safety.
Right. No, I agree. Those two guys are like erasers. Like, they're just solve all sorts of problems. And you know what's kind of crazy is you got Kuminga, who Kerr says he should play the 4 on offense, you know, because he doesn't really have the reliable outside shot. But then he turns around and he says Moody can't guard the 2 on offense, and Moody should play the 4 on defense. So in a way, you could almost put Moody and Kuminga, match up their minutes, and tell Kuminga to guard the on-ball threat and Moody to guard the 4, and then on offense, turn them around and have Moody stay outside and provide the spacing and let Kuminga attack and go to the rim. You know, it's you got to work with what you got. The trade deadline's passed. Let me give you one more crazy idea for the 2 spot. Lester Quinones is on a 2-way contract. He kind of looked okay for the Warriors a year ago, and he's got 1 year eligibility left, and he's not on anybody's roster anywhere.
Yeah, that's interesting. He was a decent on-ball defender to my memory. He gave it an honest effort, at least.
Right.
I think,
and had some length.
He had some length, no doubt. But I don't know. I think if they were going to go that route, they might be more apt to go the Pat Spencer route, to be honest, because they already have them and can just bump them up. But I like the Kuminga Moody thing. I think that's going to be a key question, because Moody's, he missed some open shots tonight, but that's part of the deal. I thought he was still one of the Warriors' more productive players in this game and helping them be in a position to steal it down the stretch. 2 of 8 from 3, but there's going to be nights like that. Some nights it's going to be 5 for 8 from 3. And
he
so
he was contributing though.
Yeah, he was.
I'll take
no doubt. So
thank you very much, you guys.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. Good phone call. 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. Tim in Portland, always a good phone call. I think that's going to be the key question: is will they go Steph, Moody, Jimmy, Kuminga, Draymond? Like, is that, or and again, I think, and Kuminga's going to have to play his way into closing lineups again. Like, that's not going to be an automatic. Like, nobody knows how that's going to work. But I do think, Kuminga asking him, and he's tried to guard De'Aaron Fox before. I mean, De'Aaron Fox is a hell of a difficult guy, and he struggled with it. There's times where he's guarded Ja, mixed results. I'm just going back to remembering, this is when he was a rookie type player with Ja, and a couple of years ago with Kuminga, the Warriors tried to put him on there, and really, I mean, in that playoff series, the Warriors tried to put him on Fox, and he really got cooked. And then they tried to play him off the ball, and Mike Brown ran him around a bunch of screens, and his man kept getting wide open shots. So it's kind of a work in progress there. I think good coaches can make him a little bit of a liability defensively, but as we start to evaluate what this Warriors roster needs, I think looking at whether or not there's a potential for Kuminga to maybe step into that role, like that's going to be more important than him coming back and looking to play, score 20 points a game. It's, can he defend, another team's top option? Steve in Albany next, 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. Hey, Steve.
Good to talk to you again. Totally agree about the Kuminga take. I'm really looking forward to him coming back. The 2 things that really stood out to me tonight, one on offense, one on defense, was the lack of the backcourt to keep anybody in front of him. It wasn't just Irving. It was Marshall. It was Christie. It was other guys breaking the outside barrier and getting into the paint and either scoring or dishing it off or causing offensive rebounds. And then with nobody, no fly swatter under the rim, they're not really afraid once they even though we blocked some shots tonight, in general, they're not afraid of attacking the Warriors that way. The other thing is the lack of focus on offense and the lack of patience and just the taking of like contested early in the shot clock threes, especially in the first half, was maddening. And where was the beautiful basketball? And why doesn't Kerr like stop things? Like a couple minutes into the game, you can kind of see the tone and the timber of the game. Why not stop it there? Hey guys, let's move the ball. Let's pass and cut. Let's look for the better shot. And then they get in a hole, and then they're like going upstream the rest of the game.
Yeah, they took some really bad shots in the first quarter, in particular. Really, the beginning of the first and the second quarters, both they took some bad shots, and like you said, they were trying to fight the uphill climb throughout the entire night. Really, and they got it back by the end of the first quarter and the end of the second quarter. The other thing that just wrecks the game, even with the bad shots, and they were too. I thought they were playing too quick offensively in terms of the shot selection, and then tonight was just one of those nights where, and you're all over it. Even with the guys that were out for Dallas, the guys that they had looked much quicker and more athletic and more skilled, and got real comfortable against the Warriors real quickly. Yeah. And that just carried throughout the night. When you let a team, especially in the position that the Mavs are with so many guys out, feel good, like they can get whatever they want against you, a lot of times they just keep doing it. And Kyrie's Kyrie. He's an outlier. He's an awesome player that can go for 40 any night. But the other guys got real comfortable too, and it led to just enough answers. And then on top of that, Steve, all of the missed layups.
Oh,
this is one of the worst layup shooting teams, I think, in the last decade in the NBA.
Totally agree. Yeah, it's funny. Before the game, Azili and Chris Mullins made the point that you just made about you can't let guys who are maybe second-tier players or support or role players get confident in a game like this when they're getting their opportunity, because they're going to seize it and go all out. And that's what we saw tonight.
Yeah, they just felt like they could operate against the Warriors. There was no resistance, and then I'm just looking at the shot chart right now, and it's always usually ugly in terms of the Warriors in the paint. 53% tonight. They did end up with 62 in the paint. They probably should have had 80. I mean, they had 62 in the paint, and they probably should. I mean, I'm looking 31 of 58 in the paint, but I'm gonna break it down even further. I'm looking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm looking at 8, 9 missed layups.
Oh my God.
At least. So we're talking literally, they probably should have had 80 points in the paint tonight. And if they do that, obviously we're talking about a different outcome. So that's another thing that they just don't have good finishers. No. And, Steph isn't quite the finisher that he was. That's one thing I think the last 2 years, it really feels like the finishing for Steph at the rim is different. I go back to I think the pinnacle might have been the 50-point game in Sacramento when he just drove them and drove them and drove them. That whole game 7 just drove them into the paint and into the lane and into and I feel like, that was almost the peak or kind of the end in terms of Steph's, ability to finish at the level that we'd all grown so accustomed to him. And I think, early part of last year, it started to kind of go away last season. And I really think it's been an issue, but he's not the only one. I mean, Wiggins, when he was here, couldn't finish. The bigs don't finish well at the basket. Moody missed some layups tonight. Like it was just, it really, Pajemski doesn't always hit him. Up and down the roster. Buddy Hield and sometimes Buddy Hield's actually a pretty decent finisher at the rim, which is kind of surprising. And then other times he just lets it flail and it's all bad. So thanks, Steve. Appreciate the call.
See you soon, bud. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks a lot, Steve in Albany checking in. Couple lines open, 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line on the layups, 510. Why do you think the Warriors missed so many layups, JD? Tonight's game exposed the Warriors' weaknesses on the perimeter, unable to guard the three, a lot of open threes, and the lack of consistent three-point shooters. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, this team still has a difficult time guarding drives. And when you have a hard time guarding drives, you have to sag. And when you sag, you can kick out for threes. And those threes are going to be better looks. And teams are going to become more comfortable there. And I said it a week ago when the Warriors made the trade. They needed to go get more. Jimmy Butler's great, and he's helped. And tonight, I think, would have been even uglier. I'll tell you right now, the Warriors would be – tonight is a really difficult loss to swallow, and a few people have mentioned that already in the chat, in a different way, I feel like, than some of the games that they've truly kicked away. Utah, Toronto, etc. But I feel like when you look at this game, it really is it's a different type of kicked it away. It's kicked it away because they were able to come back and have a chance to steal it when they played so terribly, and because of the fact of where it leaves them in the standings now with 2 out of 3 in the loss column to Dallas. They allow Sacramento to get a game up on them again. The Kings won tonight. They're finishing up a fleshier part of their schedule where they're playing the Pelicans a couple of times here, 3 times in the last week for the Kings against the Pelicans. So they're padding their record a little bit right now before the break, and they play them again tomorrow. And so it really is that. But I'll also say this. The Warriors without Jimmy Butler would be 0-3. And that's not, hey, everything's great. But the Warriors without Jimmy Butler would be cooked. They would be, you're talking about 27-27. They'd be 24-30 right now. They'd be 24-30 right now. And kind of done for the year with 2 months of what the hell's going to happen and none of this matters. So at a minimum, I do want to add that spin to the equation here, because there is still 2 months left to evaluate. And there is still an opportunity for this team to vault up. But when you start talking about the 6th seed, tonight is a kind of game that absolutely wrecks you in terms of trying to get the 6th seed. If you're going to get the 6th seed, you need tonight. And you got Draymond on his podcast talking about how I feel like you feel like, there's just nights, haven't felt that way in a long time, where you're just going to win. Like, this team's good. And tonight, I think the fact that they played so terribly yet could come back at the end, that's what good teams do, actually. They steal games. It felt a little bit like, oh, wow, like the old Warriors would have played terrible for 3.5 quarters and won the game on the end. Couldn't quite finish it. 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. Let's do a couple of chats here since Kyle's jumping on the phone. Alpha, JD, Warriors blew a great opportunity. Jimmy didn't look as comfortable tonight. Got to win the games. The teams are shorthanded. Absolutely do. Yeah, Jimmy struggled to finish a little bit more tonight at the rim. Enrique Rivera, worst officiated game in NBA history. Good to see Joe H. Warriors thought they were just going to show and get the win. Yeah, I do think there was a little bit of that, and that's not the right mentality at all. That is a losing mentality, and I do think the Warriors did have a little bit of thought they could show up with so many guys out for Dallas and get the win, and you're still going to get that best effort, even from guys that are maybe more toward the middle or the back end of the roster. Robert Brown, Irving is an all-timer. Andis, man, that was a tough loss to swallow. Apollo Crews lost to an AD-less Mavs. Well, it was, AD and Lively and Gafford and Caleb Martin and PJ Washington. I mean, what, they're second, third, fourth best players all out? I mean, I don't know. Is Kyrie's their best player now, or is Davis their best? However you want to chop it up. Brutal loss. Enrique missed layups, Buddy bricks, bad turnovers. And yeah, offensive rebounds were helping the Warriors hang in throughout. And then there were a key couple down the stretch. I don't think Moody sucked. Moody sucked shooting tonight. Moody didn't. And there were a couple shots where after he missed a couple, he looked a little bit reluctant to take some. But Gene, I disagree with you. I do think that was a charge. And especially when you call it a charge in live action. I think that was not, Jimmy had him. Like Jimmy could have gone to the bucket on him. He could have pulled up on him. Like there were two things Jimmy could have done on that play, and I think he still would have scored. And he went that route. And look, sometimes that will get called a block and an and one, and Jason Kidd calls timeout and call stands. Like it just like that is true. That is truly a 50-50 call in terms of whatever the call on the court is usually would stand in that particular instance. So one more, put the one you just had up there, Kyle. I didn't get it. Did I get a chance to read that one? Yeah, 2 bad calls, plenty of chances to be ahead by the fourth quarter. Yeah, don't get down 15. Don't go from being down 10 to tied to down 15 to within 1 to down 15 again to up 1. How about you keep it in the 6 to 7, 7 to 9 range, and then you go up 5 or you go up 6 when you make your run and put Dallas in a position where they're defeated, even though they played a real good game. The Mavs had no centers, Apollo Crews. Yes, that is a fact. They had no centers. Warriors, Buco Sports, Warriors played good defense. I thought they played good defense down the stretch. People frustrated, obviously, by the foul calls, some missed open threes, Mickey D. Yeah, that's the one downside to Moody's game. I agree with Rebel DeSounds. That's the other call tonight that I didn't think was right. That rip through should have been a two free throws. They were in the penalty, so it would have been 2 free throws anyway. But yeah, that should not have been a three shot free throw. Janine Staley, bench buddy, please. Pods and Moody. Yeah, I think the issue is Pods is also the backup point guard. So you still have to, if you start Pods and Moody, then Hield's got to play a little bit off the bench. And I think Kerr views it as, well, you might as well start him because you need shooting with that group. And you've got Jimmy and Draymond together and Steph. And I don't know. But Paul, I'm with you. I think Buddy's been, for the most part, unplayable for the last couple months. But I don't know that the Warriors have options. And again, I'm going to say it a lot. And the Warriors just don't view Moody as a 2. And I thought our buddy on the phone lines, Steve in Albany, with the discussion about Moody, can Moody play the 4 on defense and Kuminga play the 1 on defense and Moody play the 2 on offense and Kuminga play the 4 on offense? Like, can you? Yeah, and I think that it may have to be something like that. But they just do not want to have Moody out there where he's got to be the guy that ends up on the Kyries. Moody starting with post, then you bring in Kuminga with Buddy. Okay, that's interesting. And you've got Jimmy playing with Kuminga and Buddy at that point, because that's the start of the. I mean, you'd have Steph playing there at the end of toward the end of the first quarter, and then Jimmy would play with him at the beginning of the second quarter. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how things shake out. But yeah, Steve Kerr's going to have a lot of decisions to make. All right, Let's get duck sauce in San Jose as you listen to KNBR 104.5 FM and 680 AM San Francisco, the sports leader. We're turning the clock back tonight, Kyle. This is like a 50-minute opening segment. This is like the infancy days of Dubs OT where I would just come on and, you know what, we're going to go an hour commercial free. The game, there was that much to talk about tonight, Kyle.
No, yeah.
Welcome in, my friend.
Yeah, thank you. I think it was one of those games where we probably could play no breaks. I mean, I know we have to, but I think it was one of those games where there's so much to talk about, so much debate. The chat's popping off, the callers are popping off, and just so much to dive into.
Yeah, a lot to get into. So let's get Duck Sauce. Duck Sauce, good to hear from you, my friend. Where you been?
JD, what's up, my man? Always good to talk to you. It's been a while.
It has too long.
Yeah, a couple things. A couple big plays down the stretch that I thought really stood out was one was more a scenario. Draymond gets frustrated with Hield on the cut, that play where Hield cut and the pass gets deflected. Draymond's pissed off. Then he gets pissed off about the non-kick ball. So the next play he just completely quit and for a straight drive layup down the lane. I thought that was just ridiculous. How about taking some self-accountability? He's yelling at Moody earlier in the game, and I get, Hield is frustrating. I get it. He's terrible. But, Draymond's yelling at Moody earlier in the game. Why don't you take some accountability for the finger roll layup you tricked off for a 5-point swing in the first quarter? And then another big play that I thought was huge to me was we got the stop, late in the fourth. Curry drives down the middle. He dumps it back to Pods, and Pods has got to put that on the rim, man. He kicked it out to Moody. We got nothing out of it. He's got to put that up on the rim. I don't care how many layups we've missed tonight. That's got to go up. And then the last thing I wanted to say was just the whole Kuminga thing. All the points of why Kuminga is not in the starting lineup or whatever is completely valid. I don't disagree with any of it. But I'll say this. They have to find a way to make it work, JD. They have to, because this team just does not have enough offensive talent, period. Moody's played a lot better. Pods has been better since he's got back. But if Pods is if Pods is one of the main guys in your rotation, that's a problem. I don't care if he's the backup point guard, the two, whatever you want to call it. That's a problem. He's not talented enough. I don't care if you want to call him a connector, whatever, man. But this organization is trying to force it down our throats like he's going to be some special guy. He's just not special. That's just all there is to it. So, yeah, I'm sorry for ranting tonight, JD, but this loss just annoyed the hell out of me. Great to talk to you as always, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And look, as far as Kuminga goes, they are going to have to figure it out. And I think Kuminga will come back, and he's set to practice before they come back after the All-Star break. And I think he's going to be I think he's going to come off the bench initially. And I think he will be in the running every night to be a closing player if he's playing well. I think they're going to have to put him out there with Jimmy Butler at the 3 and Draymond at the 5 and see how that works, much like you saw how it worked or didn't work at times with Draymond and Kuminga at the 4 and Wiggins at the 3. They're going to have to figure out if those 3 can play together and to what level and who the other guard has to be that's out there in addition to Steph. But I think they're going to ease him in, and I think he's going to have every opportunity to earn the right to finish games, just as a lot of other people will. And again, it's not a perfect scenario for the Warriors, but he's a talented guy. And I think whether it works or not is going to be, I think, on Kuminga, honestly. Is he willing to accept that less is more and that he's still going to have big games, but he's going to have big games when he's not trying to have big games, and hustle and defense and rebounding and energy and things like that are things that this team needs more than a guy that's going to, look to try to be a scorer. So yeah, that when you don't trade him at the deadline, and then you have Joe Lacob, telling Anthony Slater, "Hey, I'm good with paying the tax that it would require to keep him," because I think a lot of people thought, well, you signed Jimmy Butler to this extension. Now, if you keep Kuminga, are you going to have to trade somebody? Otherwise, you're going to be in the second apron and you pay all this tax. Joe Lacob has no problem paying the tax. He's paid the tax for years. So I think that's what it was more about. I think it was more about the willingness to give him a big contract and keep him on the roster, as opposed to, well, if you give him a big contract, now you got to trade somebody else to get under the tax. Then it was about, well, he's coming back and he's going to have this big role and all these different things. But no, they need him and they got to figure out how it works. I mean, when he doesn't go at the deadline, that means you got to come back and figure out how he can fit with the rest of this thing. And as far as Draymond goes, yeah, I thought Draymond was really good down the stretch. I don't think it was Draymond's best game up until that point. I think that's more than fair, and Duck Sauce points that out. And the other thing I'll say, and let's get into this coming back, actually, because I think you look at tonight, and there were a couple of times tonight where Draymond, the one that Duck Sauce pointed out, and Steph visibly frustrated toward Buddy. And I feel like that's something to monitor moving forward here, because as the games start to feel more meaningful to the stars, to Draymond, and you could see it, like Draymond wanted this one down the stretch, and Curry wanted this one, and Jimmy Butler wanted this one. Like, the Warriors need Buddy Hield shooting, but as the stakes rise, the mistakes that Buddy Hield makes are more galling and more frustrating. And as the games get bigger and the heavy hitters on this Warriors roster want these games more, the things that Buddy Hield does become more aggravating. And I think for the first time, you started to see that tonight. And you saw it with Steph, you saw it with Dre. And I'll give Duck Sauce the nod there. Yeah, Draymond has to be accountable for his own play as well. But the Warriors are probably a little too dependent on Buddy Hield. And I think it's something to monitor, because Steve is stuck with him. Part of it is lack of really having another true option and lack of shooting. Like, they could have gone and got another shooter, a wing shooter, another guard. Like, they could have went and got somebody else, another big man shooter. Like, they could have done that at the deadline, but they didn't want to give up GP2 and they didn't want to give up Looney. So that means you're stuck having to play Buddy. Otherwise, you're really not going to have the threat of shooting. And I know a lot of people think, oh, well, Kuminga doesn't fix the Buddy Hield problem. Kuminga plays the 4. Moses Moody might fix it if the Warriors actually viewed him as a 2, but they don't view him as a 2. Are they going to start viewing him as a 2? We'll see. Do they view, because I don't believe, and we're at a new evaluation point as it relates to the Warriors, but I don't believe that the Warriors believe a Steph, Moody, Jimmy Butler, Kuminga, Draymond Green lineup is viable. I don't think they think that's the lineup. And maybe against some matchups, but that's not like the bona fide every night gonna close. Some nights it might be Moody, not Kuminga. Some nights it might be Kuminga, not Moody. Some nights it might be Pods and not Moody. Some nights it might be Moody, Kuminga, not Pod. Like, there's basically 2 spots open every night as far as the closing lineup goes. All right, let's take a timeout. We've got about an hour here, commercial free, to start the show. Warriors lose 111-107 in Dallas. Mavericks 29-26. That's a huge win for the Mavs. And they've won 2 of 3 here, played the last couple without Anthony Davis. But they've won 2 of 3 here since the trade. So they remain now a game and a half up on the Warriors. And the Warriors dip back with the loss all the way to 10th. Close of business tonight, Dallas 29-26. They're 8th. Sac got another win against the Pelicans, 28-26. They're 9th. And the Warriors are 10th, a game behind Sac. And again, as we talked about earlier, Warriors don't have the tiebreaker against the Suns, who they're 1 game up on. Don't have the tiebreaker against the Kings right now. Don't have the tiebreaker against Dallas. Don't have the tiebreaker against the Clippers. Don't have the tiebreaker against the Lakers. Minnesota is the only team among the group that the Warriors have the tiebreaker against. And you look at division record, like there's almost no way the Warriors, if the Warriors beat Dallas the Sunday after the All-Star game, they would split the season series and it would come down to conference record, and we'll see, although Dallas has got a better conference record by a couple of games. I mean, there's almost no way the Warriors get the tiebreaker over the Kings, even if they beat them twice, because they're 1-10 against the Pacific Division. The Warriors are 1-10. Kings are 4-6, and they have the head-to-head. So even if the Warriors are not in, they're in tiebreaker hell as it relates to the standings here. And tonight is one that really hurts, and it would have had the opportunity to win 3 in a row for the first time until November. And then I might lose my freaking mind off of something Steve Kerr said post-game, because let me tell you something. You don't, I'm going to hold off because I'm going to end up going off for another 5 minutes, but I about stopped the show 20 minutes in when I saw one of the things that Steve Kerr said. We're going to get into it next. 808 KNBR. We got Sounds of Dubs OT coming up as the Warriors lose to the Mavs 111-107. It's KNBR, the sports leader.
Dub Nation, this is the real and inside story on Warriors basketball. Dubs OT with John Dickinson continues. Streaming live at twitch.tv/thesportsleader.
Irving on the step back. Hits another one. Kyrie Irving, 36 points.
Just too good. Moses Moody, or Buddy Hield rather, played that well. Yeah, there's just nothing you can do about this one.
Anything specific need to change with that playoff push coming up?
You got to play better.
Steve Kerr, Warriors got to play better. 111-107. Dallas with the win. Buddy Hield frustrating. Nothing you could do there as Kyrie Irving does go for 42. Warriors back to 500 at 27-27. One thing I did have in my notes, I mean, Buddy, back-to-back plays when he wasn't guarding Kyrie Irving, he just gave up wide open threes to Klay Thompson. When he wasn't on Kyrie Irving, which was frustrating enough to watch, he was allowing Klay Thompson tons of space off of pin downs for open looks, and Klay had a big first half in the game, ended up 5 of 14 from 3, but did make 5 3-pointers, had 17 points. The Mavs obviously needed those points in 34 minutes. So just tonight where Buddy's going to take the brunt, and deservedly so. I mean, 1 of 9. Tonight is kind of that quintessential awful Buddy Hield game. Terrible defensively, frustrating teammates. 1 of 9, 1 of 6 from 3, still played 29 minutes, which is, Moses Moody played 27 and Podziemski played 24. So Buddy ended up playing more than Moody, more than Podziemski. And again, I know it's not apples to apples positionally, and some of Pod's minutes have to come as the backup to Steph, even though Jimmy Butler's going to be out there on the court. And those two have Jimmy subbed in for Steph. After Jimmy subs out midway through the first and third quarters, that's how the Warriors have aligned the rotation. I think it's, for the most part, the rotations look pretty good. I thought Steve tried to get Quentin Post to start tonight, keep Draymond off the center position because the Mavs were so small, and thought he could get away with it, and it really didn't work. And I think that's another thing to kind of move forward with as it relates to Draymond playing center. It's just like they have to lean into Draymond playing center. And I get that they don't want to, but the one thing that we're seeing here as the games go on is teams really looking to attack Quentin Post when he's on the court. And there's going to be times where it doesn't totally crush the Warriors and he hits some threes and it helps the flow and they have enough other defense and it still can be a net positive. But he's showed up, I think, a little bit on the scouting report in 2 ways. One, hey, the 7'2" guy can knock down a 3. And the other thing is attack when you see him. When you see him, go at him. And I thought tonight he got played off the floor. So much so early that he couldn't be out there when the game mattered. And the Warriors were better tonight in the time that he was not on the court. So couple of things there where you look at this roster, what happened tonight, what the Warriors need to do moving forward here. Obviously not much they can do between now and the end of the year. Buyout market isn't exactly going to necessarily garner a big-time impact player. I think the buyout market is a lot of, what's the old term, all hat, no cattle? Right? That's like I don't know, that term's like probably double my age, but it's just, a lot of buyout market is a lot of talk and names and then guys that come in and don't really do a lot. So I think that's one that is more of an off-season question as to how more shooting, point of attack defender, another big man. And they're stuck right now. They're stuck having to play Buddy Hield too much, specifically. And I think in part because they didn't go out and get somebody that could be an alternative to Buddy Hield at the deadline because they didn't want to part with Kevon Looney and they didn't want to part with Gary Payton II. All right, another thing moving forward. 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. We'll get to some more chats here coming up in just a second. But I also want to play this clip from postgame. I about lost my mind. And this is not the official sounds of Dubs OT. That's coming up, I don't know, in about 10 minutes. But Kyle, let's play the clip that we discussed during the break here from Steve Kerr. I'm trying to find the setup to it. On the back-to-back. Warriors lose tonight, go to Houston tomorrow, back-to-back, final game before the All-Star break. And here's what Steve Kerr had to say. This is via Anthony Slater, I believe, about tomorrow in Houston.
I don't know. We'll talk to Rick after. So it's a tough back-to-back, and that's why that's what makes this loss even more frustrating. Is that we're going to get into Houston at 3:00, whatever it is, because, the NBA and its infinite wisdom makes us play an 8:45 game, and they clearly don't care about, rest or player health. It's just ratings and all that stuff. So I get it. So everyone's got to do it. The whole league's got to do it. So it is what it is. We got to strap it up and get ready for tomorrow.
Under no circumstances should the Warriors give anybody the night off tomorrow. Point blank, end of story. Like, you got the whole week off after tomorrow. It's a tough back-to-back. There's no doubt. I don't even disagree with what Steve Kerr had to say as far as, that's an 8:45 Central Time tip-off, and you're playing at 7 o'clock tomorrow. Basically a 22-hour turn, which I think is the maximum amount or the least amount that can be in between two games on a back-to-back. Like, you can't play a night game and then a day game, right? You got to have at least 22 hours, I believe, between start times is the rule. So you can technically have a 7 o'clock and a 5 o'clock the next day, or a 5:30 the next day. Sometimes you'll see that when the Warriors will play on a Friday night and then a Saturday when they might play at home. But unacceptable. Unacceptable. Doesn't know if Steph, who played 37 minutes, Jimmy Butler, who at times will get a night off here or there. Like, Jimmy Butler's played 3 games since January 21st. Like, you got to try to win tomorrow. And honestly, even if you had won tonight, you got to try to win tomorrow. I would have been more okay with it. You got a week off. You are 10th in the West. You kicked a game away. If you'd won tonight, one in Utah, one in Toronto, and you're 30-24, and you're sitting there at 7th, a half game out of 6th, and you want to give everybody the night off tomorrow and an extra day and let the young guys go, fine. But you just got Jimmy Butler. You don't have Kuminga back. Steph's been playing back-to-backs. Not every one of them, but he's back to playing back-to-backs. He played in Utah. He played against the Lakers. He played the Kings and Bulls a couple of weeks back. Like, he's been playing in back-to-backs. So to me, you got to go try to get tomorrow and finish. You can't punt tomorrow. And I know the Warriors won a game in Houston without Steph earlier in the year. They've actually won 2 games without Steph, specifically against Houston this season. But that's just completely unacceptable to me. You don't get to punt games and rest everybody when you're 500 and you're 10th in the West and you've got a week off. And I don't want to hear about Steph doesn't really have a week off because he's got to go to the All-Star game and all of that. He's going to get 4 days off. All-Star game's light work. And this isn't Steph. Steph wants to play. So I'm not saying this is Steph. This is not Steph turn it into Paul George or Kawhi Leonard. Like that's PTOP. Like that's not what this is. But you are not in the penthouse. You are much closer to the outhouse right now. And yeah, nice little cute 2-0 start. Didn't play well tonight. Had a chance to steal it. Didn't get it. Now you punt. Tomorrow, before the 1 o'clock Central tomorrow, you punt. That's unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. You got to try to fight for it. You don't come on and I ask Steve in Chicago. I say, Steve, how unprovoked. I didn't even ask about the standings or anything like that. Just more about combinations and trying to find things and the win. And he says, well, yeah, the win's important for the standings because we're trying to get to the 6th seed. Well, you lose tonight, you punt on tomorrow, then you cannot respectably say you're trying to get the 6th seed. Like, give me a freaking break. Give me a freaking break. So, yeah, they can get with Rick Celebrini and they can get in at 3 a.m. and they can play. You're getting the whole week off. The non-all-star dudes can do whatever the hell they want. And I know the Warriors have some younger guys that are playing in a G League game and the Rising Stars game and all that. That they can handle it. But Steph's going to get 4 days off, and Jimmy Butler going to take a week, and Draymond can do whatever the heck he wants, come hang out on TNT, or go to the Bahamas, or whatever he wants. Go to Cancun. He can do whatever the hell he wants. His life, his world. Those guys need to be playing tomorrow. And if you lose, you lose. But don't be telling me about the 6th seed and it's go time. And then the first back-to-back you punt when it's up against the All-Star break. Again, if this was, 28 games to go, got another game Saturday, then I'd have no problem with it. You're at the All-Star break. I mean, Kyle, am I crazy? You're at the freaking All-Star break. You got a week off.
No, that was my first. I was like, what? Not playing? I mean, it would be different if maybe you won this game, but even then, you can't go under 500 going into the All-Star break after you just got Jimmy Butler and you have a week off.
No, can't happen. By the way, Kyle, I think you're frozen on the YouTube. I think the studio cam is frozen.
Yeah, the studio cam cut out. We thought we got it back, and now now Jack Loader's fooling around with something.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, yeah, you're frozen. It's all right. It's a good frozen in time shot. But those guys have got to freaking play tomorrow, man. Like that's completely unacceptable. You don't take this loss, say it's go time, 28 games to go, playing for the 6th seed. You're losing ground to Dallas. You're losing ground to Sacramento. You're not gaining ground on any of the teams above you. Losing ground to Minnesota. Oh, yeah, play for that. Oh, yeah, don't know. Tough back-to-back. And you know what? Look, the league comes up with a lot of nonsensical reasons to have days off and certain amount of games on certain days and things like that, to where the league could fix the freaking problem. Also, by the way, look at there are times the Warriors have 2 days off surrounding a game in Miami on both ends in March. Tell me that. Like, does anybody say that? Like, nobody complains about that. Like, why? All the time off teams get around the play-in or on the in-season tournament because you got to have the in-season tournament. Like, so you get teams that play a game, have 3 days off, play a game, have 3 days off because you got to get the in-season tournament on this day or that day. You can't play on election day, and you can't play on a Thursday after football except for the 2 games that are on TNT. So everybody's got to play Wednesday and everybody's got to play Friday. And you know what? Because everybody's got to play Wednesday, everybody's got to play Friday, then somebody's going to play back-to-back Saturday because you got to play Saturday. The NBA schedule is a joke, but it's a joke in a different way than I think Steve Kerr is hinting at. And again, I'm sorry. No excuses. No excuses if you're the Warriors. You got to play your guys tomorrow. You can't take that L and then decide you're going to punt. Rockets are on a back-to-back tomorrow. Rockets played tonight. It's a short trip. They're going Dallas to Houston. I think Houston was home tonight, so they get a little bit of an advantage there. Yeah, they were at home. They beat Phoenix 119-111. Anyway, I don't know. That pissed me off. Like that like what are we doing? That pissed me off. All right. 808 KNBR. Let's go ahead and take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll get our sounds of Dubs OT. We'll get some fun with numbers.
KNBR presents the sounds of Dubs OT.
I can see the headline now. Kerr says Warriors better without Curry.
No class, no balls.
I want to get my joy back. I'm happy here, off the court.
Now here's John Dickinson.
All right, final segment. Dubs OT with JD. Mavericks win 111-107. Warriors back to 500. Second game of the back-to-back tomorrow at Houston. We'll get to fun with numbers between now and 11 o'clock. Still time for a couple of calls. If you want to jump in on the phone lines at 808 KNBR, we'll get to the Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line. And, of course, as we now close out every show, it'll be Kyle's choice as it relates to the best of the best of the best of the best in the YouTube chat. Kyle able to scroll through much more effectively than I can here while also trying to host the show. But let's get to Sounds of Dubs OT. Let's get to Steve Kerr and his post-game press conference and what he had to say as far as the Warriors' mindset early that wound up biting him in the ass late.
Just think it took us too long to start playing and really focusing and, locking in on executing at both ends. And we messed around with the game for too long and then left ourselves vulnerable. And obviously they cashed in. They did a great job.
So it took the Warriors 3 games with Jimmy Butler to come out and think they could just show up and they were going to win the game and mess around with the game and could come back and win it. That's also notable tonight. Although Steve not off track at all with those comments, definitely messed around with the game, allowed the Mavs to get comfortable. Mavs got comfortable. Warriors made their push, and then it becomes who's going to execute down the stretch. Maybe a call or two goes against you, and night in the wrong direction in favor of the Dallas Mavericks over the Warriors. Let's hear another from Steve Kerr along those lines, post-game from Dallas, and the way the Warriors set themselves up early led to being in that position they were in late.
I mean, in a game like that, they make a shot. I think Marshall makes the floater. We get a couple good looks that don't go. I didn't think there was anything, egregious or any huge mistakes or anything like that. I just think, like I said, we left the game in the balance because of our poor play earlier in the game. And then, when you do that and the other team is at home and we got a guy like Kyrie who forces your hand and, we left ourselves vulnerable and, it's disappointing.
Big time disappointing. And now you got to figure out what's going to happen tomorrow against Houston. And I would agree. I think there were some missed shots down the stretch. Again, a couple of calls, which we've discussed here on the show tonight that are frustrating, but I don't think there was any egregious mis-execution down the stretch for the Warriors. It's 33rd clutch game. They're 16-17. They were on a little bit of a hot spell in terms of the clutch games, and now they're in a little bit of a cold stretch in terms of the clutch games, but 16-17 and 33. And we'll see what happens here moving forward tomorrow in Houston and then out of the break. I mean, every loss, especially the games against the teams that they are in the group with here of the play-in teams, Dallas, Phoenix, Sacramento, all those games are even more meaningful because those are going to be the games that determine whether or not, those are almost worth 2. And so when you lose one, especially when you get an opportunity, and I use the Sacramento example again, the Kings went into Dallas, and look, I know it's different. The Mavs are not going to be as amped up to play the Kings on a Monday night as they were tonight on ESPN, with their crowd still all pissed off about the Luka Doncic trade. And so the Mavs are going to be more amped, and the Warriors are going to get a better effort against them. But I used the Sacramento example. The Kings just went in there Monday night and won. Basically the same game. Mavs didn't have any centers, Kyrie, all of that. And they went in and they found, DeRozan scored 40 and they won. And it was 42, I believe. I don't want to shortchange him. But like that to have them as a team that's in the group go in there and get the win late, play a much better game, by the way. Warriors played well for the last 6 minutes of every quarter. The Warriors basically they played well for like half the game after they dug a deep hole. But now the Mavs get one, you lose one, Sac gets one up on you, and and now you got to figure out whether you even want to try tomorrow in Houston. So bad night, really, all told, for the Warriors. Clippers won tonight as well. That's another one, and just kind of scanning a little bit of the scoreboard. Everybody playing tonight. San Antonio got beaten in Boston, so you don't worry about that. Among the teams beneath the Warriors, Phoenix got beat. So the Warriors are, if you're playing for 10th, you're fine. If you're playing for 10th, you're in great shape. Minnesota got beat tonight. They were in 7th. We talked about the Kings a couple times. They moved up, beat the Pelicans, taking advantage of the schedule. Lakers got beat tonight after moving into 4th. And then, the Clippers. So you lose ground to the Clippers, who are the team that you're chasing right now for 6th. And you look up into the night, you're 3.5 back, and now 4 in the loss column on the Clippers. So one night, it goes from, you know what? They got a shot maybe at 6 if they can win tonight and tomorrow. We'll see, at one night, now all of a sudden you're 4 back in the loss column with 28 to go, and you don't have the tiebreaker. Like you're probably not, don't want to say it's over, but this team's going to have to go on a real hot streak, and maybe they're capable of it to get back and get into the 6. Tonight feels like a real significant standings blow, especially when you look at the little round robin among a bunch of these teams all playing together. All right, Steve Kerr also addressed the point of attack defense in the ball game tonight, and Kyrie Irving's ability to get going.
How would you assess your point of attack defense just with where it's at right now these last few games?
Not good. Yeah, we struggled. My mistake was probably not hitting Kyrie earlier and getting the ball out of his hands. I think we did a pretty effective job of that in the fourth quarter. I probably should have gone to that earlier.
Yeah, I think they probably should have. And I would have thought that they would have gone to it a little bit earlier. But again, I don't know whether it's the back-to-back, and when you start doing that, your defense gets scrambled, and it takes a lot of energy away, and I don't know. To me, the game plan, and I think this is where Steve leaves himself vulnerable on that point in particular. To me, what a lot of teams would have done today, when you look at the Mavs, they would have blitzed him the whole freaking game from the jump. They would have blitzed him. Look at what teams have done to Steph when it's Steph and a bunch of guys. They blitz and blitz and blitz and blitz. I hate to keep coming back to the Kings, but go back. Remember the game against the Kings in Sacramento a couple of weeks ago? That the Warriors, they blitzed him the whole game. I mean, the whole game. 90% of the possessions, when Steph was on the floor, blitz, 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 double, blitz. And the Warriors were kicking their ass for 3 quarters or a half, moving the ball around and beating it. So, it's not without fail, but that's what, and they aren't the only team that we've seen do that. So how about you give somebody else a little dose of what teams like to do to you when it's basically a 1-star team with a bunch of guys? So, Steve opened himself up to that one. I think it's fair to criticize it, and the Warriors did do well with it down the stretch. All right, a couple of quick ones from Steph Curry, and then we'll get our fun with numbers. Kyle's picks from the YouTube chat, and we'll call it a night because we're going to do this thing again tomorrow. Rain or shine, and whether Steph and Dre and Jimmy Butler play or not. But let's hear from Steph on the fight the Warriors showed and Kyrie Irving being too much to overcome.
It's a tough start, and then we fought our way back in the first quarter. I think the beginning of the third, we kind of lost our cool. We let bad calls affect our body language, and we did fight down the stretch and try to give ourselves a chance. But a team like Dallas, with all the injuries, Kyrie's going to try to take over. He made some tough shots. You got to give him credit. they were playing hard the whole game with really nothing to lose, and those are the hardest type of teams to play. And if you make mistakes, you give them life, and especially at home, it comes down to possession here, possession there. It didn't go our way.
Yeah, I mean, it just I'm tired of hearing about the loss of composure, whether it's missed shots or frustration with the officials. And I do think the frustration with the officials thing, like this is going to be a lot more volatile team now. We've talked about them being a much more viral team. And that was the other big picture overarching thing that I took from tonight. It was like, wow, the Warriors are back on the grand stage here. ESPN, close game. Mavs had a bunch of people out, back and forth finish. But I'm sick of the Warriors, miss a couple shots, all of a sudden, no confidence. Couple bad calls, and all of a sudden you get frustrated. Like this team's going to be volatile. They're more viral, and they're also going to be more volatile, I think, with the officials here, because now all of a sudden they sense that they might be able to make a little bit of a run. And I think that's why you're seeing Draymond and Steph will lead you with Buddy. I think that's why you see, but you can't lose your freaking composure. Like this team is not good enough to just kick away possessions because they're pissed off at the refs. Like you can't, like it ain't 2018. Like you can't, you gotta be more buttoned up when it comes to that. You gotta keep your composure because the game was getting away to the point where, I mean, what was the large? Was it 15, 17? It ended up being 15. There in the middle of the third quarter, it's 15. Whereas you're thinking, hey, it's a 1-point game at halftime. You keep it in single digits, you make your run, and you steal it. But they let it get way out of hand before they came back, and they ultimately, even though they did come back, came up short. All right, final clip. And this is more of a big picture overarching call. Steph gives his thoughts on the charge with Jimmy Butler and Kyrie taking the charge, and also now 3 games in and how it feels getting into a rhythm playing with Jimmy Butler.
Just be aggressive. We know he's such a great all-around player. I know he's still getting in like true Jimmy game shape and whatnot, but being aggressive, whether that is to score or draw a double team, make plays, we've seen it at a very high level. And as he gets more comfortable and we get more comfortable getting him into his right spots, I'm sure he'll be able to take advantage of those possessions and those opportunities. So yes, but also, you want him to be a distributor, shot creator, like all the above. I didn't see it from my side, but I saw the replay. Obviously Kyrie gets right, but it's kind of a bang where how slow do you want to slow it down, whether he was set or not. I thought his foot was up and he kind of made a readjustment. That's what I saw. Every 50-50 call didn't go our way tonight.
Yeah, and that was definitely a 50-50 call. And the Warriors have had a few nights where they feel like the 50-50 calls have not gone their way. I think they're going to get more games where 50-50 calls do go their way, though, between now and the end of the year because of the style of play of Jimmy Butler. So we shall see. All right. Before we get to fun with numbers and we end it, Kyle, give me the best 5 from the chat. And I appreciate everybody, Rebel to Sounds and Joe Schmo and Jimbo and Estimated Eyes, Buco Sports, Andis, Digum 117, Jokes on You, all the regulars, AB, Irwin, San Jose Jazz Fan 4. Love seeing everybody in the chat, and the chat continues to grow here. But all right, Kyle's picks here for the best 5 as we close it out. Let's let it roll. JC Mack, NBA covering for unhappy Mavs fan on national TV, so they need to cook this one. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Max Lopez, now that the level is higher, they're frustrated with mid BS. Yeah, exactly. I think that's a big part of what it is. Buddy, I think Buddy Hield's easy to laugh at when you feel like, yeah, you know what? We're not going to win that many games anyway. But when you think you actually have a chance to do something, you get frustrated with the style of. It's not even the style play. It's not even the antics. It's just he just doesn't do anything well other than shoot the ball most of the time. Most of the time. All right. DVDV. Jason Kidd walks 10 feet onto the court to contest a clear kick ball, no tech, and Mavs got the ball. Yeah, there probably should have been a tech there. Probably should have been a tech there. But in certain instances, you are able to walk out on the court as long as your demeanor is such that, maybe you're not berating an official with foul language or something profane. But yeah, I mean, maybe you add that in the 50-50 calls. Jay Tan, how many minutes should Buddy really be playing? Not 29. 15 to 18? I don't know. Kyle, you want to chime in on this? I mean, I feel like it's if he's a bench player, and I don't know how this is all going to shake out. I mean, they like Jimmy with Pajemski, which bringing Pajemski off the bench allows those two to play together more with the bench group. I don't know. To me, it's maybe the first 6-8 minutes of each half if he's going to be a starter. And then you see if he's got it going that night. And if he doesn't, he's out. And it's 14 to 16 minutes, not 30. I think, maybe you give him the first 6 minutes. And if he's playing all right, you give him another 3 or 4 at the end of the half. And then and you do the same thing in the third quarter. And then that adds up to 20. On a good night, 20. On a great night, maybe we're talking shorthanded, 27, 28. Shouldn't be 30 plus. I'm sorry. It should not be 29. Go ahead, Kyle. Jump in on that.
Yeah, I mean, I would expect as the games get more meaningful, which I feel like they are now, that he should probably be playing less. I mean, we've seen with his other stops on play-in, playoff teams that they really don't play him nearly as much as he does with the Warriors. So I would expect no more than 20. And maybe, I feel like there's going to be nights where, you may play him for 5 minutes. And if he's not doing what you need him to do, then I think he's unplayable.
Yeah, I think they were rolling with it. He played all right the last couple of games. The thing is, you just never know. Like, it's just, you just have to, like, he was all right in Chicago. You think, all right, he has a couple of good games. He might have a third game. So you give him a shot, and then it's like, oh, no, he doesn't. So, yep, see you later. We got 2 more, 1 more, as many as you want. Kyle. What else we got? I wonder how many free throws the Rockets get tomorrow for Kerr criticizing the NBA. I'm not a conspiracy theorist at that level. Let's ride. I'm really not. Estimated eyes. I'm sick of people hiding behind 4 rings and unable to address real issues with this team. Who's not addressing the real issues? I know we are. I know you're not. I estimate. I know you're not talking about us. Who's not addressing the real issues, Kyle? Bring. Name some names, Kyle.
Oh, Overnight Dave? No, Dave is critical. Definitely some people in the chat. I don't know any specific names, but I think that's geared towards the chat.
Yeah, I think. Look, this team's got issues, and the first 2 games really, they played really well against the Bucks, start to finish. They played a really good final 20 minutes against the Bulls. A dominant 20 minutes against a terrible Bulls team that, by the way, was down like 50 in their next game at home against Detroit and lost by 40. San Jose Jazz fan 4, if Buddy gets us an hour of Dubs OT with no breaks, I'm okay with that. Yeah, you did it tonight. A little bit of Jimmy Butler sprinkled in there too, Jazz fan. Andis, Hardy is a perfect example that you have to be ready to play when you get your chance. Shorthanded, haven't been in the rotation, not mentally locked in. Yeah, you got to be ready to roll. You got to be ready to roll when you get chances. A couple more to you, Kyle. However many, 2 or 3 more. Or you can call it.
Well, so yeah, it was starting to get hard to pick out some after the camera went down, but we do have some funny. The chat was going off during that time because it was just a blank stare from me into the camera. So
Kyle, blink twice if you're okay.
Yeah, they're like, Kyle, blink if you're in danger. And anyway, I'll show some of my favorites.
Yeah, let's roll them out. That's a good one. Kyle would be good at Squid Game. Kyle looks like he got caught cheating on a test. These are great. Kyle looks like he's fervently checking out stats for the show. Yeah, Kyle, you're really locked in on that computer, man. Dude, you caught me for a second. I'm like, wow, Kyle is locked in. And I'm like, oh. It really took me like 2 minutes. I was like, oh, the camera's frozen. Because I clicked over to the actual feed. So there's like the pre-delay feed that we communicate on and we can see the chat. And then there's the actual feed that goes out to everybody. There's a little bit of a lag. And so I actually looked at the other one. I'm like, oh, he's like not moving. Kyle are the freeze tag king.
No, it actually took me a minute. I was like, do I actually look like that right now? I was like, I think I'm moving.
Yeah, that's and then I knew you went to the mic because I brought you in and I'm like, oh, like you went to the mic and you were talking on the mic and while you were talking on the mic, you were frozen. So clearly it was all bad there. Yeah, no sudden movements, Kyle. Good stuff. Kyle, the glitch in the Matrix. Kyle's family can now rest assured. Yes, Joe, he's all right. He's good to go. All right, good stuff there. All right, you're listening to KNBR 104.5 FM and 680 AM San Francisco, the sports leader, a Cumulus media station. All right, let's do a quick fun with numbers, and then we'll wrap this thing up and head toward tomorrow.
This is Dubs OT with JD. Time now for fun.
I'm a fun guy.
With numbers.
No, I'm just having fun.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live on KNBR.com and the KNBR app.
All right, let's run through it here to close out the show. Warriors 2-3 in the 6-game road trip. So all in all, I think it is going to be a disappointing trip when you look at the game that they blew in Salt Lake City, a game they had an opportunity to win tonight and didn't. And then we'll see what they ultimately decide to do with the late night and the travel from Dallas to Houston on the second of a back-to-back. But they are going to have a week off. Well, everybody except for Steph's got a week off to get on the mend and relax and all of that before true go time a week from Friday in Sacramento. And this team's going to be playing a lot of games on the road. I know we talked about it coming up now, 12-14 on the road, 27-27. And again, they were 26-26 and 25-25 every time. Every 2-game stretch since 18-18, Kyle. Everyone, 10 in a row. Now, the last 20 games, after every 2 games, they've been exactly 500 and 27-27 after the game tonight. Mavs, 2-1 season series lead, final matchup, and an odd season series. This is the only game the Warriors will play in Dallas of the 4, and the Mavs, because of the in-season tournament, will play a third game right after the All-Star break at Chase Center, and the Warriors are going to have to win that one to even up the season series. 16-17, the Dubs in clutch games. Warriors out-rebounded Dallas 50-39, and they're 11-4 now, taking a loss when they have 50 boards. Warriors, for the most part, did a decent job on the boards. Had 62 points in the paint tonight. They had 62, which is a strong number, and it felt like it should have been 80 because they missed a ton of, 10 layups unofficially by the count, and by the in-game me marking a little tally on my on my notepad and also looking at the shot chart post game. Warriors are 1-21 now when trailing after 3 quarters. Warriors down 83-78 going to the fourth quarter. Steph had 25, ended his 30-point streak. Jimmy Butler had 21, third player ever to score at least 20 points in their first 3 games with the Warriors. You want to name the other 2? That's actually a good trivia question. Jimmy Butler, third player ever to score at least 20 points in each of the first 3 games as a Warrior. Name the other 2. Big names.
Can I pretend like I don't know? Because I saw this pop up on NBC, but it's KD and Wilt Chamberlain.
KD and Wilt Chamberlain. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Gary Payton, 14. Moses Moody, 14. And a random fact, this one from Daryl Arata. The Warriors have allowed exactly 111 points in 3 consecutive games for the first time in franchise history. Go figure. I mean, that is kind of the exactly 111 points. Anyway, thanks, Daryl. Appreciate it. I wanted to get that. I wanted to sneak that one in. That's there was some other stuff to that. That's via Elias also. It's the 5th time in Warriors franchise history they've allowed the exact same amount of points in 3 straight games. So 5 times they've allowed the same number, but the first time it's 111. They've had 111, 129 3 times in a row, 99 3 times in a row, 104 3 times in a row, and 119 3 times in a row. And so a little fun with numbers, scoreagami kind of thing here to close out the show on this Wednesday. All right, that'll do it for Kyle and for Raph and for Overnight Dave and for anybody else I'm leaving out. Was there anybody else I'm leaving out?
You're good.
All right. I'm JD. We will talk to you tomorrow after the Warriors take on the Mavs. That is a 5:00 Pacific start. So look for us about 7:30 right here on KNBR as that game goes final. And then we got a great weekend for you. Just Dubs on Saturday. All-Star Weekend. We're looking at where we're going to be doing the show from on Saturday. But we've got a potential cool location to be doing the Just Dub show on Saturday. And then we also are, to all the regulars, and I should have promoted this. I'll promote it more tomorrow night. Should have promoted it more tonight. We are going to do a Dubs OT from Harmonic after the All-Star game on Sunday night. We'll do a Dubs OT. So looking forward to that. And Greg Silver is going to co-host both of those shows. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Saturday, 10 a.m. until noon. And then we'll get through all the All-Star festivities and the game. And then we're going to do one at Harmonic Brewing in Thrive City after the All-Star game on Sunday. And then a few days off for your guy. No, Kyle, I think you're taking the weekend off. So enjoy that. And then, get charged up because it's going to be a hell of a sprint. But one more game to go, Kyle. We're not punting on tomorrow.
We will be there.
We are going to be here tomorrow talking about Jackson Rowe and Guy Santos and Pat Spencer and whoever else. Who am I forgetting? Maybe they'll sign Lester Quinones back just for tomorrow.
Maybe Michael Mulder.
Michael Mulder can come back. Yeah.
Brad Wanamaker.
Marquise Chris. Glenn Robinson III. Who can the Warriors sign to a 10-day contract tomorrow?
What's Eric Pascal doing nowadays?
Give everybody the night off. All right, that'll do it. For Kyle and everybody in the studio, I'm JD. We'll talk to you tomorrow right here. KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Butler drives into the chest of Irving. No whistle. Another call. Offensive foul on Butler. No whistle initially. And James Williams blew his whistle. Said offensive foul, but Steve Kerr is going to challenge it.
John Dickinson.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No!
Big audio quality show.
You are a sicko. and I appreciate you for it because I'm a sicko.
I just know they kicked our ass tonight.
No class, no balls.
Everything's gonna be all right.